Greetings all. Going to give a quick update on the employment numbers, and I'm also going to experiment doing off-the-cuff YouTube live commentary. There's a lot of things in the news that I wish to opine upon, and writing it down as a blog is too laborious. There's a lot of research coming up. I will post it on the Veritasium Telegram chat as well as the social media, regular social media channels. But I haven't been getting a lot of uptake in terms of Telegram, Twitter, etc. So I'm going to try YouTube as well. So to the brass tacks. Today we had unemployment claims at 1.5 million. Okay, that's 200,000 jobless claims above the consensus average of 1.3 million. But let's put this in perspective, okay? Because the pop business media is still trying to spin this as more positive than it should be. The largest claims number in the history of records was in the early 1980s. I think it was 689,000 jobless claims. The peak of the 2008 recession was lower than that. I think it was around 660,000. Okay, we're in the 13th week of, I can't even say lockdown because all 50 states have relaxed lockdown. We're in the 13th week of the bubble popping and the pandemic effect. 13 weeks forward, okay, all claims have been considerably over 1 million. On the 13th week, we had 1.5 million claims, which is considerably more than twice as much as the world record, or the historic record, and twice as much as the nastiest recession since the Great Depression. Okay. Now, a lot of pundits and analysts saying, well, this is confusing since we had such a good unemployment rate number, where the economy added 2.5 million jobs. And if you follow my other videos, that's absolute nonsense. Okay, everybody, again, click the like button, click the subscribe button, and the notification button, and share so we get more people into this. So everybody says, why is the unemployment number, claims number, still so high when you added 2.5 million jobs? We did not add 2.5 million jobs. The government purchased 2.5 million jobs by doing a bailout of small businesses and not so small businesses, such as Shake Shack, etc. Okay, so the government took, I think, roughly $600 billion, dumped it into the small SME, the small and medium-sized enterprise economy, okay, and purchased those jobs, okay, with a very limited time frame. Initially, you had to have spent all that money, up to 75% of which had to go to payroll and had to be expended within 8 weeks. They've dropped it to 60% and extended it to 27 weeks, which is basically the extent of the year. But it's still a limited amount of money, and most importantly, those are not organic jobs, right? People are not getting jobs. People are benefiting from bailouts that are given to companies with explicit instructions to give those to payroll workers or workers on the payroll. Okay, many of which were let go, furloughed, etc. So they brought them back in. Yes, of course, I'm still in crypto. They brought them back in. And by the way, Reggie Bone, you know, I'm going over macro. I'm going to get this macro connection to crypto in a minute. But this is the largest variable in terms of adoption and the success of crypto near term, and that's a macro scenario. But let me get to that after I get finished going through the employment situation. So those 2.5 million jobs that were added were actually purchased and reduced the 18 million or so jobs that were lost. Okay, 16 million or so jobs that were lost. I'm sorry, I don't have the math fresh in my head. But if you look 2 videos back or 1 video back, I go through the numbers explicitly. Okay, so now, not only are you still losing jobs, and not only is the unemployment rate still increasing, but that 2.5 million positive print is an example of how expensive it is to get this economy going. So the government purchases $2.5 million jobs. And in order to do that, they need money. There are only 2 ways for them to get the capital to do this. A, they print it, so they monetize the jobs. If they print it, they reduce the value of the dollar proportionately. It's common sense. You have a pizza pie, That pizza pie has initially 4 5-inch slices. Okay, the only way to get 20 slices out of it is to cut more slices of pie. You don't have more pie, just have more slices. The other way to do it is to raise taxes. This is guaranteed to happen. Okay, if you raise taxes, you're gonna be raising taxes on the same populace that you gave that bailout to. So you're taking money out of your left pocket, you're putting it into your right pocket. Okay, this unfortunately is not analyzed, is not pontificated in the mainstream or even the pop media. Okay, and to put this in perspective even further, this economy is horrible. It is by far the worst that I've ever seen in my lifetime. But I've only been alive for so long, 5 decades or so. But it's also possibly and quite probably worse than the Great Depression, and by a significant shot. By a significant shot. So, taking all this in perspective, someone asked me if I'm still in the crypto. Yes, I am. Litigation did a lot of damage, but we have a fantastic product, and we have a fantastic research team. We're melding this together. The product is getting liquidity, tokenized gold that can be used as private money, as well as silver and palladium, okay, and lots of other contracts that go into it. But as for the relation of unemployment in crypto, okay, the stock market, because of massive printing by the Fed, has been shooting up, right? The monetary base has increased by more than 50% since October. That means the amount of money that existed, right, US dollars that existed, has increased by over 50% since just October. The vast majority of that printing has happened since March. Okay, that is absolutely ridiculous, right? There's a reason for it, of course. The Fed is not stupid, but the efforts that they're going to ameliorate this fall are extreme and totally unprecedented. Okay, so if you take a look at the stock market, which has been flying, but also dropped, if you take a look at the major cryptos, Bitcoin and Ethereum, you'll find that their correlation has increased and approaching the 90 to 100% mark. So basically, Bitcoin does what the S&P 500 does, and Ethereum to a slightly lesser extent, but they're very, very highly correlated. Okay, the market fell, dropped, crashed, Bitcoin crashed, Ethereum crashed. The market was spiked due to liquidity, Bitcoin and Ethereum spiked along with it. Okay, the market cannot go farther, significantly farther, right? Or should not go farther. The reason is it's already so detached from fundamentals from the economy that in order for it to go farther, you have to lose a total credibility in the market to begin with. Okay, price discovery is gone. If that's the case, the market's going to collapse. The market's going to collapse, and Bitcoin has a high correlation to the market. What's Bitcoin going to do? So the only way Bitcoin doesn't collapse is Bitcoin loses its correlation to the market. My thesis of how this correlation came to play is Bitcoin's fundamental thesis for existence, which was a wonderful, superb idea, as decentralized, non-sovereign controlled electronic money to be used through the internet, is lost. How much development has been in Bitcoin as of recent? I can't think of any. Okay, most of it is private parties outside of Bitcoin. Okay, and that's not getting much traction. The vast majority of the buyers of Bitcoin and most of the economic activity in the Bitcoin is for one thing: speculation. So now you have Bitcoin funds, you have Bitcoin brokers, you have Bitcoin investment advisors, but this is for speculation, not for the actual fundamental use of the platform. So the value has gone from using Bitcoin to speculating on Bitcoin. When you do that, these speculators are the same speculators that speculate on the S&P 500, on options, etc. And that's where that type correlation comes from. Okay. Now, to break that correlation, right, you can put your interest into a crypto that is not purely speculative, and that's where our product, the VE Gold Verification platform, comes in. The tokenized gold, and gold had some correlation to the markets, but it pretty much stands alone. Okay, gold has been much more stable, has outperformed the S&P from day one, from 1 year and year to date, and it is, in my opinion, and I am not a gold bug at all, by far. It is, in my opinion, the only major asset that I can think of that is not priced stupidly. Equities are ridiculous. You can't do price to earnings. You have to do price to X because most management are too astute or honest, at least too honest to say that we're going to anticipate what earnings are going to be next quarter, quarter after next. There's zero visibility. Very few know what they're doing in terms of virological studies unless they're actual a virology company. And to guess or to assume what estimates are to shareholders and analysts, I think is malfeasance and negligence. So of course they don't do it. So if you can't do price to earnings, right, you have to do price to unknown variable. How do you know how to price a stock? I see a lot of pundits saying that stocks are not overpriced, they're not expensive. How would you know? Okay, I think they're extremely expensive. You look at stocks such as Apple, right, that had a PE, had a price of, let's say, let's pick a nominal price, $190, $200 in January this year, right? Fast forward 3 months of most of their stores being closed, right? Massive, unprecedented unemployment, supply chains broken in China, demand broken from uncertainty and from unemployment, and yet the price is more or less, circle where it was in January. So earnings have dropped, earnings potential has dropped, earnings forecasts are not being given, the price is the same. So what's the PE of Apple? Absolutely ridiculous. And it's not just Apple. I choose Apple because Apple is one of the most well-known profit-producing economic engines I could think of. Same thing goes for energy companies. A lot of tech companies are, I think, getting carried away. Okay? What's happening in the big tech sector in the U.S. is you're getting a lot of consolidation because the small and medium companies don't have the capital to go forward, so the bigger companies are taking more market share. But for right now, they're taking more market share of a smaller market, which means their value should go down as well. Okay, same thing with retail. Okay, a lot of small and medium retail entities are going down in viability. A lot of them are not going to make it. A lot of big retailers are not going to make it. But the big online retailers, Walmarts, the Targets, the Amazons, capturing much, much larger market share, but much more larger market share of an increasingly smaller market. Now, will this bounce back? Eventually it's going to go up more, okay? But the issue is when? No time soon. You go up, and I live in New York City. This is actually Fort Greene Park in Brooklyn. I decided to get outside. If you go through the retail areas in Brooklyn, if you go through the very high-end retail areas or the medium retail areas through Manhattan, take a walk down Broadway on Soho. 60% of the shops are out of business. Not just shuttered, but they're gone. Okay? And they haven't even opened back up yet. When they do open back up, who's left, they're going to be opening back up to muted demand. It's guaranteed. Okay? You just can't bounce back to this. The tax base has dropped 40%. The tax revenue collected in New York State has dropped 40%. I'm sure that has been significantly exacerbated in New York City proper. Okay? Then you take the actual fundamentals of what makes New York one of the most vibrant, probably the largest economic engine in the world as a city, and that is its large commercial base, its office space. Every major company in the world has a presence in New York City, right? Because of that, there's a lot of commuters that go into New York for work, okay? And when they go into New York for work, they shop in the area, so you have vibrant retail. They eat in the area, vibrant restaurants. They come back after work for the culture, theater, etc. And then other people come in. It creates a big, vibrant city, then tourists come in. All that is broken when, number one, a lot of the companies are either going out of business or they've learned that, hey, I don't have to pay $400,000 a month for rent, these fancy leases, because we made everybody work at home, and it worked out. So now you're going to have a significant drop in the office space, okay, and the valuations. You have a significant drop in residential valuations because now people don't need to go into the city. They can work from the suburbs, they can work from another state, they can work from Ohio or Pennsylvania or Arizona. This is not endemic to just New York City. It's going to be endemic to every other large city that has a strong commercial base as well. Now, I could go on to other parts of real estate, residential, etc., but the real estate sector is in big trouble. Okay, collateralized loan obligations are the new mortgage-backed security bailouts of or mortgage-backed security entities of the 2008-2009 era. We're doing studies. We've already isolated 10 banks. I think we're going to do a lot more of these and go through a lot of research. And put these through YouTube live videos to see if they work. Now, let's take a few questions because I have to get up and do another presentation. At 12 o'clock, I'm doing live podcast on stable coins and the macro environment for anybody who wants to be part of it. Let's see. I'll take a few questions before I go. I have friends who own big chunk of commercial real estate, but ain't the size that competes. Direct line in the Fed. Ruralization would be a trend in real estate. Ruralization or suburbanization. There's already a lot of urban flight. You're also going to have a significant drop in services available because 40% drops in revenue mean a lot. Now you're going to get some aid from the government, but there are a lot of politics being played as well. And these politics, left, right, Democratic, Republican, they're being played at the wrong time. When you have a pandemic, you're having significant unrest in terms of protests and riots. You have, a depression. All three of these at the same time. It's not a time to be playing political games. Yet, that's what we have in the U.S. and in New York, unfortunately. What about the euro in Europe? Well, I was very bearish. I'm very bearish on the U.S. Okay, the U.S. is not ready to lose its reserve currency status as of yet because if it were to lose the reserve currency status, where would that mantle fall? It's not going to fall on the euro. I've been very bearish on the euro since 2016. Okay, the euro is literally scotch taped together. They tried to create a use in 30 or 40 years and tried to skip the 400 years of slavery, the Civil War, which decimated, which meant killed 10% of the male population, and the Revolutionary War, and the world's largest unified army, and the single language spoken across all 50 states plus DC, and the one contiguous land mass that's protected by large bodies of water on each side, and. Okay? So the euro is worse off than the dollar significantly, and I think Europe in general will be worse off because they're not as strong as economic base. Now there's always Asia, but China has many of the same problems. So we have somebody, BXD Concept says, how is Synchrony Bank holding up? I take it that's a sarcastic question, and I want to address that because that comes from someone who apparently doesn't understand how these work. Unless I misconstrued how you presented it, but pretty sure it seems to be sarcastic. So Synchrony Bank has shot up. It's almost doubled, right, in price since I went bearish on it. Okay? That does not alter the fundamental analysis, evaluation, or opinion on Synchrony at all. Number one, Synchrony has yet to report earnings that included a significant amount of the quarter under lockdown. Okay, their last quarter reporting only had 8 days out of 90 under lockdown, and they reserved significantly, okay, and had a significant drop in profits, so I think it swung to a loss. I can't remember exactly which one. That's 8 days out of 90, right? Less than 10%. The second quarter is going to show significant damage, and they're going to have to go through this for many, many, many quarters to go. Okay, we're not even going to hit bottom for several quarters. Okay, and then once we hit bottom, then you have to go back up to the top. I believe they're going to burn through significant reserves, and as they're burning through reserves, the losses are going to mount. People are not going to pay their credit cards when they're worried about eating or having a job, okay, or paying rent or mortgage. And on top of it, where's the revenue going to come from? Are you going to instantly go up, take your credit card, and go shopping for cars and TVs and iPhones? Unlikely. Okay? The reason why Synchrony Bank shot up has absolutely nothing to do with fundamentals, has absolutely nothing to do with whether we're right or wrong. It has to do with the fact that the Federal Reserve has started buying stocks directly in the stock market for the first time in its existence. It has to do with the fact that the Federal Reserve has increased the money supply by over 50% in a matter of months, something that's never done. And the Federal Reserve is giving out loans and spending money and basically debasing the dollar as quickly as possible to attempt to hold up and prop up this financial bubble. Now, their stated goal is to prop up the real economy and not financial assets. Okay, it's believable. And Chairman Powell of the Federal Reserve said that his concern is not blowing financial bubbles right now, it's blowing the real economy. Plausible, feasible. The issue is we were already in a bubble when he started blowing a new bubble. Okay, guaranteed crash. Synchrony reminds me of Hertz. Hertz stock, HTZ, the car rental company, they have already filed for bankruptcy. Okay, and the stock went up 157% with $19 billion of debt on their balance sheet. So for those who don't understand, in Chapter 11, in order for the equity holders to have any value, all the debt holders who are higher on the payout or hierarchy have to be satisfied. And after filing for bankruptcy and after having it stock shoot up 157% by retail traders primarily and Momo traders who follow behind that, they filed for a secondary stock offering, which is initially approved by everybody else. I'm not going to get into who and why, but absolutely ridiculous. They're basically selling worthless stock because their other worthless stock shot up in price 157%. Okay, so asking me how Synchrony Financial is doing is very similar to asking me how Hertz is doing. Hertz is doing horrible. Synchrony Financial is not going to do well. We have a second bank that I'm going to come out with. It's a credit card lender. It's bigger than Synchrony Financial. Similar problem. A little stronger than Synchrony. Same fundamental issue. Okay, any other questions? The future of crypto is too large a question. Crypto is it's a very big topic. Will you go in depth and best methods of collateralizing loans? Go to the research section of the DApp, dapp.verification.com. Click the menu, go to research, download the VE-LIN document, take a look at the videos. That would give you a lot. The collateralization of loans really depends on the type of loan that you do. That particular loan was collateralized by real property. Okay, and I will go in that more depth as time goes forward. My thoughts on ETH. I am more bullish on ETH than I am on Bitcoin because ETH is hyper-functional relative to Bitcoin. Bitcoin was a very good idea, it was functional. The problem was it became a speculation engine and not engine of actual value transfer. That's good for those who are into that, okay? And everybody likes to speculate. But with speculation, you have to understand that Bitcoin is only 11 years old, 12 years old, okay? So it doesn't have much of a history. And it's becoming more of a fiat asset, such as the US dollar, and less so of an actual commodity that has functional value behind it. It does have some, but it pales and pales more over time, okay? The dollar as fiat, you have belief in it because you also have the largest military, the largest economy, and the largest geopolitical power. So there's something to believe in there. Not saying there's nothing to believe in Bitcoin, but I become less and less supportive of Bitcoin over time because of what's happening to it. It's financialization. Do you see the global economy going down because of derivatives? Like the housing bust? Well, the global economy is going down because the global economy was in a bubble and then hit a pandemic and then had to shut down. So it's going down for obvious fundamental reasons, but this is a trifecta, a worst of all worlds. Everything went up. Yes, everything's going to go up when you flood everything with money. Of course, I had no idea how much it would go up, but I see. It took me off guard. But the fundamentals are sort of fundamentals. Do you think the dollar will collapse this time? The dollar has to fall, okay, and it will fall. The issue is, it will probably do better than most of the other currencies because all the large developed nations are in the same boat, and the U.S. is at the top. Now, with the U.S. fall more relative to others, it's a possibility, but I'm still more bullish on the U.S. than others. The U.S. had the most infections in terms of COVID, but it's also one of the larger nations, and it's by far the most diverse, and it's by far has most of the international travel, so that's to be expected. More infected people go into the U.S., right? More density in the U.S., you're going to have more infections. The U.S. also has more of a capability to fight it off, more capability to develop vaccines, etc. The U.S. is currently crippled now, and the reason it's crippled is because politics has made a health issue, a pandemic, into a political issue. Okay, death is not right, death is not left, death is not Democratic, Republican, conservative, liberal. Death is death. Illness is illness. until we get that fixed and we get able to tackle problems without making a left versus right debate, the U.S. will be at a disadvantage. But I could see that happening in other countries, probably not to the extent as the U.S. And in countries where it doesn't happen, more totalitarian regimes such as China, they do get to the point immediately. But again, China's own method of governing got in the way because in Wuhan, where it started, they were alerted this by doctors, and then they shut the doctor down, right, instead of acting upon it. So it goes to show the Chinese way is obviously not perfect because they could have slipped this in the bud in Wuhan instead of clamping down on the doctor. They decided, instead of clamping down on the disease, they clamped down on the doctor who discovered the disease or publicized it. In the U.S., they decided to make a political event out of it versus attending to the problem early on like they should have. So maybe lessons will be learned. Hopefully they will be learned. But for right now, there is no perfect union. Okay, so I'm looking at these. SPY showing weakness. It won't go up much longer. It's going up simply due to quantitative effects. The money's throwing in money going in. At some point, and the problem is it's going to be a Minsky moment. Think of the Roadrunner, that old cartoon, how he used to run off the cliff and doesn't know he runs off the cliff until he looks down, there's nothing there, then he falls. Very, very difficult to tell when that's going to happen. If you want to stay short, and a lot of professional investors, actually all professional investors who can go short and can count, have been shorting the market. Not all, but I'd say a majority, because the valuations are so extreme and so out of whack. And a lot of them have lost money. Actually, everybody's lost money who's been short. But that's the way it works. And you'd also make a lot of money if you're short when it collapses, but it's a very expensive endeavor. Okay, here we're talking about defunding the police in Atlanta. That's not really the topic of this discussion. I love to discuss that topic because I think that comes in a lot to play. I've had my own run-ins, not only with enforcement agencies such as police officers, but other enforcement agencies where I don't believe I was treated fairly at all. And but I have to be careful because I don't have the power to fight or litigate this out. But I think the truth will come out sometime soon. Be careful about shorting the banks. The Fed is very brisk to prop up prices to push them higher. They're terrified of loss of confidence in the banks. Yes, that's understandable, but it all depends on what you're short. If you short equities, right, you can prop up the banks and the equity prices still fall. You can do CDS spreads, okay? The banks can shore up liquidity, but you have to understand that when people lend money to the banks, they would like to get it back. Anybody who's bullish in the banks now is obviously in direct contravention to me. The banks are very strong in the U.S., by the way, strong liquidity positions. They're very, very strong. The problem is they have a very, very rough macro environment and fundamental environment going forward. It's very nasty for them. So the banking system is not going to collapse, but you have some banks that either are going to collapse or not do well as an investment unless they're propped up by the government. And that doesn't make a good investment, propping up. So it's not like in 2008 where they weren't prepared and they're dropping like flies. They are more prepared now. But I get the feeling that, and I see the numbers that show that what's coming forward is so much worse than 2008. Just look at the unemployment numbers, right? 686,000 as the absolute highest, right? Peak for the 2008 era. We haven't even reached the highest level yet in terms of drops. Okay, so 13 weeks in, we're still over twice what the highest day was, or the highest week of unemployment was through 2008. You're talking like 13 times worse and counting. Okay, housing bust this year? Probably. You're going to see some uptake. A lot of people are leaving the cities to go in the suburbs. I know taking New York as a microcosm, which is not necessarily accurate because New York is a little different, but a lot of people have left the city to the suburbs who can afford to, and then the city has turned around, and New York State has the lowest infection rate in the country, down from the highest infection rate in the country. New York State's infection rate was so high, it was the second largest infected country in the world, second to the U.S., and it's not even a country, it's a state. And close to half of New York State's infections came from New York City. So, it's a little early to be making broad predictions on what's going to happen in the future, okay? But so far, everything looks a little negative. Okay, I'm going to sign off now. Let me prep for the podcast. I don't know exactly when it is, but as soon as I end this, I'm going to retweet it on my Twitter account. So everybody go to @ReggieMiddleton. Or better yet, go to the Telegram/Veritasium official account and ask there. They know where it is. So everybody go to the Telegram group. If you're not a member of the Telegram group, please become a member, because I'm going to start putting even more and more research on Telegram as well. Because that way it's moderated, it's administered by smart, good people, and everything's nice and clean and informational. Any information you want to know on tokenized gold, trading gold, liquidity, we purchased a lot of gold tokens back from various people over the last week or two. They've been purchased, sold, so it's basically real-time trading of gold, where you can take possession immediately. Okay, thank you everybody, and again, hit subscribe if you haven't subscribed, hit the notification button, right? Share this to everybody, to all your social media. I might even do one of these later on today, but when I get off-the-cuff thoughts on macro events, on news, etc., and I'm going to broaden it because I have an experience that's different from many others. Once it comes to socioeconomics, racial diversity, I'm going to speak on it all. I'm going to be much, much bolder going forward, and I'll hold my tongue. Okay? Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for following.